Hello again, this is your friendly neighborhood master resident back with more videos into the series of how to get into MBRU residency. So this is going to be part 4. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you go through part 1, 2, 3 of this series of video. It's all going to be titled the same. How to get into MBRU residency, and the part which part it is actually written in the title screen as well as in the caption of the video, so it's not very difficult to find the parts. You can just go to my page. There aren't too many videos up, so you should easily be able to find them. They are still pretty fresh, just uploaded last week, and once you go through that, it'll be a bit more orienting for you to get here. Now part 2 and part 3 of the video are a bit more targeted towards the Indian graduates and foreign graduates. So if you really are in short of time, then what I would say is that you can just go through part 1 of the video before you watch this, because basically what part 1 does is explain the entirety of the application process in brief. And this video, we're gonna start breaking down that application process into phase 1, 2, and 3 as documented in the, as mentioned in the MBRU website page. So for this particular video, I'm going to be referencing the MBRU website, and basically all the information that I'm going to be providing you today in this is all information that's available on the website, clearly transparent, very well written. You don't have to be wondering oh, what are my sources. It's all just legit information that's out there. I'm just going to be talking about it, and I will be linking the website page in the description box as well, so that it's easy for you to go and check that information. And I would recommend, if you are watching this video maybe months or in the next cycle as to when it was published, that you again cross-check this information on the website, because the website obviously will be updated. This video will not be. So maybe there may be things that are changing. So I would highly recommend that even after seeing this video, you just go once to the website and cross-check everything, so that you are not caught off guard if there's some changes that have been made. Before I dive into the video, for those of you who are new to the page and unfamiliar with me, there is also a who am I and an intro and get to know your source video on my YouTube page. It's very long, unfortunately, but if it's something that interests you to know how my journey has been so far and who I am and how I got here and how do I know all this stuff, then please set aside 40 minutes of your time to go through that video. And another thing that I will mention before going forward is that I usually leave the video breakup in the description box below, so that it's easy for you to come back to this video and find the spots where I mention certain things and just reference that if you don't have time to go through the whole video. So try to make use of that. If you're watching this for the first time, I would recommend, though I know that I tend to rant a lot, I would really recommend that you go through the entire video from start to end, because the flow of it might be missed maybe if you just skim through the breakups. Okay, so as I said, we will start with the main content of this video, which is basically we're going to be talking about step 1 or phase 1 of the 3-step process, that is of getting into MBRU residency, and phase 1, which is called the shortlisting. Now, I know that when we discussed it in the primary video, I call it the first step is getting through the EMREE. And yes, this is mainly focused on the EMREE, but it also has other parts. So, and the MBRU website has titled it as shortlisting. So we're going to be referring to it as shortlisting in this video and henceforth as well. So this is the video about the shortlisting process. Now, there are a few things here. This may be a long video, so buckle up. Right. Now, when you go to the MBRU residency page, they have very detailedly given everything very nicely in a drop-down menu and everything. They will have mentioned that the phase 1 of the process is shortlisting, and then this is the exact page. I know it's not going to be super clear on the screen itself, but if you can see, this is the page that says on top shortlisting. Okay, now what they mean by shortlisting is basically the part where you send in your application form. Okay, now to take a quick recap, we know that we talked about how there is an exam, and there is after the exam with the score, you apply for the application, you send in the application, and after the application is sent through, you have an MMI and you have a specialty interview. Everybody is on board with this, right? Now what they mean by shortlisting is the application form sending. Okay, and now why they have called it shortlisting is because it's really not focused only on EMREE, and there are basically 3 things that go into shortlisting that is very, very important. And for those who have been following me or who have approached me with this question, a lot of people seem to think that getting a very high score in EMREE is very important, having a nice CV is the most important, having a good GPA is the most important. So there are so many questions as to, oh my, this is poor, can this compensate? All those questions are going to be answered here, because as you can see on the website, and I will try to put up a little picture here. You guys know I don't like to edit, but I am trying to do that as well to make things easier. So I'll try to put up a little picture right here that shows you the exact screenshot from the website itself that is showing what the breakup is. So the breakup typically like amounts to the GPA counting for 35% of your shortlisting score, your residency entrance examination, which is EMREE, which calculates to another 35% of your total shortlisting score, and this part 3 is the portfolio, which accumulates to 30% of your shortlisting score. So the breakup is GPA 35, EMREE 35, portfolio 35. Now we're not going to go into much detail about the GPA because I think everybody knows what the GPA is. GPA is basically your score, which is calculated from how you have done throughout your MBBS or your med school. Basically, it's going to take all of your scores throughout med school and then give you one score. So you have like obviously multiple exams throughout the years from year 1 to year 5, and all of these scores are going to be accumulated, and most universities give you something that is called a GPA, which is like how good of a student and how consistent your scores have been throughout your education period. Okay, now the way universities calculate it is different. Each university obviously has a different standard. Now we know that to equalize that, the MBRU does request for this GPA to be converted into something called an ECE, and how we do it and everything has been discussed in the video that we interviewed with Dr. Mariam. That is also available there on my page, so please check that out if you don't know what ECE is and what is the process. But we don't want to spend too much time there, so just understand that GPA is converted to ECE, which is like a standardized international score, and that ECE counts for 35% of your shortlisting score. Okay, I think that's fairly simple. We will hopefully not spend too much time there. Now next one is the residency entrance examination, or the EMREE score, which also accounts for another 35%. Now we're going to talk a bit in detail about EMREE here, because I know that's the part where a lot of people have a lot of questions, and you guys get really like choked up and what do I do, where do I go to study, how many exams, and all that stuff. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we talk about details about the exam and the process and what to study itself, what I need you to understand is that the EMREE is the exam which is considered the residency entrance examination, and because it is the residency entrance examination, you obviously need to do decently well on it to have a good chance of your application. But please do remember that it only counts for 35% of your entire shortlisting score. That means that the EMREE itself is not the deciding factor as to whether you get selected as a candidate to go forward. Okay, it's like roughly just 1/3 of the entire criteria. It just holds 1/3 of the weightage. And I know a lot of the people who ask me this are Indian graduates who get really concerned about the EMREE score, mostly because we are trained in a system where that single exam score, like the NEET PG for example, that single exam score on that single day holds 100% weightage as to whether you will get selected or ranked, and then you will get the specialty and the college that you want. But here it is literally like, what do you call it, it's just 1/3 of part 1. So that's just it. Everything else, there are so many things, like I've mentioned in my part 1 video, there are so many facets of you that they evaluate before they come and they say that, okay fine, you are eligible to become one of our residents, which is what I really love about this entire application process, because it's really not a one moment in time kind of a thing. So yeah, so like I said, it just accounts for 1/3 of the entire shortlisting process, and we're going to talk a little bit of detail into what exactly EMREE is and what the scoring, what do you call it, process is and all that. Now, just so you know, the MBRU website is, what do you call it, the residency for the Dubai residency, government related residency program. But the EMREE is a combined exam for the whole of UAE, right? The name itself stands for Emirate Medical Residency Entrance Examination. It doesn't stand for Dubai Medical Residency Entrance Examination. It means that the EMREE application, the rules of the EMREE, the dates of the EMREE, anything related to EMREE requirements, etc., is not available on the MBRU page. That is a very important thing to understand from this video. Where will you find this? You will find this on the EMREE website, which is also going to be linked in the description box below. Okay, so that's a whole different website where you have to go and apply for EMREE, and it'll show you all the required documents are, it'll show you the dates, it'll give you all the information surrounding the exam. Right now, we will go through that right now in a few moments, but just understand that the EMREE exam, like I said, is not linked to the MBRU page, and you have to look for it somewhere else. Now, when you go to the page for the EMREE exam, you will find something like this. This is the starting page. Again, sorry that it's not very clear. So in that page, you have the registration, and you also have the requirement, the procedures, the exam calendar, everything is mentioned there, including the exam fee. Now, the exam fee, as we discussed earlier, is 1,000 dirhams per exam. Okay. Now, the thing about the EMREE exam is that it's not a one exam. So as you guys know, NEET PG and all, I'm sorry, I'm keeping on comparing with the Indian system, but again, like I said, that's the one that I'm most familiar with, and then that's the one I'm going to draw most examples from. But in the Indian system, we have one exam that has one date, one time, that's nationally imposed. Everybody sits for that one exam, and you have the same time, the same papers, the same questions, and then you are scored. Right now, the EMREE is different. I suppose in a way it's good, maybe in a way it's bad. Everything has its pros and cons. Now, how the EMREE is different is that it's not one exam, it's usually roughly 5 exams. So if you go to the exam calendar, I think they've even added more exams this time. Okay, now if you go to the exam calendar for the year, for the upcoming EMREE exam season that's running, I find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 exam dates. Okay, and that's starting all the way from December, like mid-December to mid-March. So there are actual 8 exam dates that you can apply for. So they understand that maybe if you give one exam date, I don't know, what if there is something very important that's happening in your life that time, and if you miss that date, you have to wait another entire year? No, you can always apply for an exam that's coming after that, right? So they give you that option with these multiple dates. What is the drawback? The drawback is that you never know. One exam might be a bit harder, one exam might be a bit easier. There is really no way to completely standardize difficulty of each exam. There will be, like, maybe one exam, if you have written, you will feel like, oh my god, if I had gotten this paper, then maybe, like, I would have gotten a better score. And there's another exam where you're like, oh, this was too hard. So there is a little bit of luck involved, and there is no way to know which exam is gonna be in your favor. So you just have to pick a date that goes with you, and then you have to apply for it basically. So in the EMREE exam, you are going to be evaluated for multiple specialities. In the sense, the curriculum of it follows special fields like family medicine, surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, obstetrics, and gynecology. Again, all of this is in the what do you call it, in the website itself. So these are the things that you will be mostly tested on, like basic knowledge and basic medical school knowledge is what's going to be, what do you call it, tested. Again, it's an MCQ exam. The MCQ exam has 120 questions, and you will be given a total of 3 hours to answer these 120 questions. There are no negative markings in the EMREE, means you can attempt all the questions and then you will get a percentage mark. You will also roughly get a percentile mark that shows you where you stand in level with the other, just to give you an idea, because there is no ranking, but you'll get a percentile to know, oh, this exam, this much score means that, you know, like some exams maybe 80% score might mean that you have done really well, and in some exams a 70% score might mean that you have done really well. So I will give you a percentile score as well. The other thing that you have to know about the EMREE exam is that, again, like I said, there are multiple exams. So the question that might arise is, do I have to give multiple exams, or can I give multiple exams? And the answer actually is no. Okay. When I was applying for residency, if you have already gone through my journey video, then you will know that it was possible for us to actually do this. It was possible for the candidates back then to apply for multiple exams, and I have done that. I have given multiple exams and chosen my best score and used that best score to apply because of my experience. If you want full details on that, please go to that video. I'm not gonna repeat myself, just it'll make this video super long. But now the rules have changed. Now the rules are that if you pass an exam, if you get the passing score, which I believe is 55%, again, you will have to verify the information on the page. It may change, but I know roughly it's calculated 55%. So if you attain passing score, that means that you cannot attempt again. And that is the score that you have to use to apply. Okay. Now you might be thinking, okay, you know, being a little cunning here, being like, you went for an exam, you went through all the questions. It seems like you're not gonna get a great score out of this because you know, the questions seem difficult, they come from topics you haven't studied. So you think very shrewdly, you think, you know what, I'm gonna purposefully fail this exam and I'll prepare more, and I'll come next time and I will study harder, and then like I'll get a better score. Now this, because I was on the committee for all of these things, so we actually talked about this. We were like, you know what, this is something that they will do, and then sometimes, you know, people who give their first attempt might get a lesser score, and people have get a second attempt because they're attempting it for the second time, might be more experienced and get a better score. So how do we like remove that bias? And this point is clearly mentioned on the MBRU website as well. I'll put up that screenshot here. Basically, it says that the residency exam score will be calculated based on the score, on the percentile, and the number of attempts. Okay, which means that if you have already failed an exam once or twice or 3 times, and this is attempt number 2 or 3 or 4, then that a certain amount of deduction of score will be automatically calculated before your finalized score is taken as a part of your shortlisting score. Okay, now how exactly that is calculated is a little different, but I'm going to use a few examples here. I mean, I don't know what the exact calculations are and I don't know how they do it, but I'm just going to give a few examples here to make that point very clear. Okay, now imagine candidate A has given the exam for the first time, gotten a 75% score, and she is in the 90th percentile, which means that, oh, with her 75% score, she is like in the cream of the cream, like only like 5% of people have scored above her. Okay. Candidate B has again taken the exam the first time, has gotten an 85% score, but that person is in the 75th, 80th percentile. Means that their score is actually higher than candidate A, right? But the percentile means that a lot of people have scored higher than them. So there will be a balance where a certain equation will be applied so that they can evaluate candidate A and candidate B fairly. Okay. Now imagine that there is a candidate C. Now candidate C has failed one exam. So this is their second attempt and they have gotten a score that is again 80% and they are again in the 90th percentile. Now, if you don't count the number of attempts in any of these cases, you will know that between candidate A, B, and C, the better scoring is for candidate B and C, right? Because we said B got somewhere in the 80s and C has also gotten somewhere in the 80s. But the percentile is actually higher for candidate C, meaning that they have scored high on a difficult exam. So when you think about it, they will think that, oh, candidate C should be the better candidate. But because it's their second attempt, they will get a sort of cuttage of marks so that it's equatable with the candidates who put their first attempt score. It's maybe a little bit confusing. You might need to rewind and hear that again, but I promise you when you hear it again, it'll make sense. So just to know, there are 3 points that get, just to summarize, there are 3 points that will go into your finalized EMREE score, which will be your percentage, your percentile, and your number of attempts. So based on all of these 3 things, they will calculate a particular score, which I don't know if you will be privy to. This will be the score that will go into that 35% of score of your shortlisting process. Okay. Now, I think we have covered a good amount of EMREE details. Now, the most burning question that everybody has, how do I prepare for this exam? You should know that the EMREE exam doesn't really have an exact source. Like what I mean is, when you apply for USMLE, there are USMLE books. When you apply for PLAB, there are PLAB books. There are no EMREE books. So where do you go to study? USMLE Step 2 is the pattern that they use. Like the USMLE Step 2 and EMREE have similar patterns, so you can base a lot of your training or a lot of your practice on the USMLE 2 step pattern. But what exact sources you need to use, just hang on till the end of the video, and then I will put up a little bit of I'll give you a hint, okay, as to where you can find that information, but only if you hang on till the end of the video. Okay, now that being said, I think we have covered everything about the EMREE. We have covered about where you have to, like, how often it comes, can you give multiple attempts, the process itself, the format itself, and the attempts and the scoring and how much it counts, everything. One more thing I will mention, this is something that everybody keeps asking me, is, oh, can I apply? I'm an FMG. Oh, can I apply? I don't have visa. Can I apply? The requirements. So this also as well is available on the EMREE page, which I again mentioned is going to be linked below. If you go to the requirements, it is very clearly mentioned that the requirements that you need is a copy of your passport, a copy of your Emirates ID if you are a UAE resident, meaning that even if you are not a UAE resident, you can still apply for the EMREE, and a payment receipt of the exam fee. So these are the only 3 documents you require to apply for the EMREE. Please, please, please keep in mind that this is the requirement process for the EMREE, not for the MBRU residency. As I mentioned earlier, the EMREE is the unified exam throughout Emirates. The EMREE score is a part of the application criteria for MBRU residency, for the RTP residency, for the residency in Abu Dhabi. It is one exam, and they only ask for these 3 documents. Now, MBRU obviously asks for other documents like your MBBS and your transcript and everything that we talked about, which is entirely different. But just know that to attempt the EMREE, these are the 3 documents that you need, and it is clearly available on the EMREE page, again, which is linked below in the description box. So I hope we are clear. I hope we have nothing else regarding the EMREE that we need to tackle. And so we will move forward to step 3 of the shortlisting phase. This is again going to be a little bit long. Now, what is step 3 that we said? Step 3 is portfolio. Okay. Now, the question is going to come, what on earth is a portfolio? So your portfolio is basically just a part of the application form which functions as a CV. Okay. I'm just going to go a little bit of detail or go a little bit away before I come back to portfolio, just so that it's clear. Now, in the drop down box of the residency process itself, you will find a place where they say academic documents. Okay. Now, in academic documents, these are the documents that we talked about in the attestation, that we have to attest all of these, whatnot. They include the undergrad certificate and your internship certificate and your transcript and everything. And the other things that we mentioned, you have the ECE, you have the IELTS score. So all of these documents are there in the academic documents. They have also mentioned that you need recommendation letter 1 and 2. Okay. Now, recommendation letters, I will try to do a whole other video on them, because I don't want to mix up this shortlisting process with the documents and everything. It will be confusing. So we'll try to do a small video on documents and recommendation letters. But why I am going here is because in the academic documents, there is a part that says curriculum vitae or CV, right? Now, your CV basically is going to be like a document where you talk about your, where you pass, what your what your other experiences are, your achievements are. So it's just a document that claims these things, right? So I could put anything in my CV, because it's not asking, like, you don't submit your CV with the verification documents, do you? For example, in my CV, when I submitted it, I had mentioned that ATLS provider course attended of this year. Did they ask me to submit a certificate for proof? No. I had also mentioned, I have experience in working in this place from this time to this time. Did they ask me for a certificate? No. So your CV can basically say anything. Now, what the portfolio does is it's a part of the application form where you have to actually upload supporting evidence that you're going to mention in your CV. Okay. So in all of the videos where I keep mentioning, your CV is important, build your CV, make your CV strong, it means that it's basically just translates to where you're making your portfolio strong. Your portfolio, which is again the third most important criteria of your shortlisting process. Now, when we go to portfolio, the things that they're going to ask you, they have very, very beautifully, clearly explained in this part of shortlisting, that what is counted how much in the portfolio. Again, I will put a little bit of a screenshot here which shows everything, but I will just read through it so that you are on board with me. So it says that the total portfolio is scored under 30. Now, we know that it counts for 30% of your total shortlisting score. So 30 points go to portfolio. And how are those 30 points divided? 4 points go to research activity, 6 points go into publication, 4 points go into presentation in a scientific event, 2 points go to any voluntary, social or community activities. That is, like, if you have one activity, you get 1 point. If you have another activity, you get a second point. If you have more than 2, you don't get anything more. So it's 1 point each with the cap of 2. So 2 activities, 2 points. Skill enhancement courses, again, same format, 2 points. So if you have 1 course, you get 1 point. 2 courses, you get 2 points. Anything more than 2, you don't get any more points. Okay. Same applies to extracurricular activities, 2 points capped at max. So 1, 2, and then no more if you have any more. And academic awards are given a total of 4 points. Okay. Now this is the breakup. Again, I will have the picture here, but I also want you to go to the website itself, go to portfolio, check it out for yourself. Maybe in the coming years they might change the criteria, because like I said, I was a part of the committee, and these things are very frequently reviewed, and then they ask for like, what do you think? Do you think we have to change it? Do you think we should keep it? Do you think that this has more importance, or this should take less importance? So these things are very always getting feedback, always getting changes. I am no longer a part of that committee, so don't ask me what's going to come up. I have officially put on all my responsibilities of being part of any of these committees, so I really don't know what the changes are going to be. But just know that whatever changes they do end up making, and whatever changes get approved, will be updated on the website, because like I said, the process is so transparent now, and you will be able to find the information on the website itself. Now, what exactly do they mean? So like I said, your portfolio, you have to upload all of the evidence that you have these things, right? That as well is given so detailedly, so nicely in the portfolio part of the drop down menu. So when you go to the portfolio part of the drop down menu, as you can see here, you will see that they have mentioned what document you can upload to support each activity. It's a long list. I will not go through it, but I'll just read one or two so you get an idea of like what they mean. So they're going to tell you, so if you say, oh, I have done research, they're going to ask you for your proposal or an official letter from your research supervisor. If you say something like, oh, I've participated in a scientific event, they'll ask you for a certificate of participation, and they have clearly mentioned that attendance certificate or photos are not accepted. You need a certificate of participation. And then if you have, for example, a skill enhancement course, like I mentioned, ATLS, then of course the completion certificate from ATLS or whatever other course it is will be required. Academic awards, again, in the form of certificates. Extracurricular activities even need proof in the term of a certificate and official letter from an institute. Okay, so everything that you are going to claim on your CV needs a backup in your portfolio. Okay, so that's where these things differ. When I was when I was doing it, only CV was required. Portfolio was not a part of the application, but I think it's good that they included all of these things, because I was also wondering, like when I was filling it, I was like, hey, you know what, how do they know that I'm telling the truth, that I have actually done this? So there was a part in the application back then where you could attach any extra documents. So I attached all my certificates and awards and whatnot there, because I was like, oh, I need to give them proof or they won't believe me. But now they're asking for proof, which I think is a good thing. At least, whatever you say will be substantiated in your portfolio. So that is the conclusion on the portfolio, which again accounts to 30% of score. I hope what you understand from this is that no one thing holds your entire future in your hand. Neither the EMREE, nor your GPA, nor your heavy CV, everything more or less has its equal weightage. And even when you talk about the CV itself or the portfolio itself, not one thing like, oh, I don't have research, will that affect me? 4 points are the ones that is going to research. Do you have other awards and other things that are like, going to compensate, then you'll get those points. So it's so objective, and you can easily know like your weaknesses and where you can like substitute. For example, you have not, done, or you have not gotten any awards, okay? And now there is no time to go and like present, and you don't know if you'll get an award, right? You can obviously attend and present, but will you be able to get that award? You don't know. So what can you do? You can say that, okay, I can get 1 more point if I do 1 more course, because I've already done one. Let's say I've already done BLS, so I can add that. Maybe I can do 1 more similar course. Maybe I can do an ACLS course, maybe I can do a PALS course, and then get that 1 more point. Similarly, you can also be like, you know what, I could present more, I could do another voluntary activity, and then I could add that as well, and that will add another point. So these are things that like, are going to really impact your portfolio a lot. Now, a little bit of a difference that I'm going to talk about in terms of portfolio versus CV is that, as you have probably understood from here, nowhere on the portfolio have they mentioned an experience letter. Okay, that's basically because this whole program is targeted for people who are straight out of internship, and they don't expect interns who are just graduated to have any sort of experience on them. Why I wanted to bring up this point is because you don't have a place to mention it on your portfolio, but please be aware that you still can and should 1000% should mention it in your CV. I'm saying this specifically for the Indian graduates because, as you know, the Indian medical license, I think maybe the Indian graduates don't know, as you will probably find out when you start working in other countries, is that the Indian MBBS license is hella strong. Okay, meaning that you have and you know this, people who are finishing the MBBS in India, they know this. Once you have your MBBS, once you have your registration, with this license, you can work anywhere provided that the hospital is willing to hire you. That's why we hear about all of these JRs in our country, right? Junior residents, where there's no entrance exam or anything. You just go apply in a hospital, in a department. You can apply in any department. It can be gastro, surgery, medicine, cardiology, anywhere. And all you have is an MBBS certificate. But you go there and you apply. And if they have a shortage and they're willing to hire you, and they, for some reason, feel like, that you can do the job, then all they want is an MBBS certificate, and they will hire you. They will give you a little bit of training, and then you'll gain experience just by hanging around, which is incredible. And I feel so, unhappy that people in India don't really understand what power that is, because it's only when you come here and you see that when you are a graduate in countries like maybe the US or in UAE, if you graduate from here, then you don't have much choice except either you can go do a GP job, which is like a proper GP job, and then again for that, you have to apply for the GP license, and then a clinic has to hire you. A clinic is obviously not going to be too happy to hire a fresh grad, so there are obviously those challenges. Or you have to get into a residency. You can't just go to a hospital, to a department that you like, and be like, hey, you know what, I finished my MBBS, can I be hired here? No, that doesn't work here. And the fact that we could have done it there, for example, when I finished my MBBS, I worked in the emergency as an RMO for a while, seeing everything, managing everything. I've put central lines, intubated, done so much of emergency procedures, and this is as a fresh baby hatchling graduate. And once I got a little bit of experience, and I went to them and I told them, hey, you know what, I want like a bit more of a permanent position kind of thing, not like a shift-based system in the ED. They put me in the ICU. So I worked as the officer in the ICU and an officer in the labor room for a night shift. Like I was covering ICU and labor room night shifts as a fresh grad with maybe 3 months of experience. And they were willing to do that because they have seen me work. They tried me out in the emergency system. They were like, hey, you know what? She knows her stuff. She's picking up. She's learning. Let's give her some training to handle like ICU patients, to put central lines and take delivery by herself and all that. And that's it. I was there. And all that experience, I actually added in my CV. Now, I know that in the portfolio, it's not mentioned. And in the CV, if you add it, you might be thinking, oh, if I can't put it in the portfolio, who is actually going to go through my CV? Believe me, the people who are sitting for your panel interview, for your specialty interview, which means the team that you're going to work with, are going to comb through your CV to look for something intriguing or fascinating about you. Because they get you after the shortlisting. So all of the shortlisting which I talked about, where 30% score, 35% score, they're not like, they have all the information if they want, but they're not going to care about it, because they're going to get a candidate who has gone through shortlisting, been picked, gone through MMI, been picked, and then sent into the specialty interview. Now at that point, what they're going to have with them is not your portfolio, it's going to be your CV, right? Now in your CV, if you have mentioned something like, hey, you know what, I've got experience, I have worked for a year in a high intensity environment, I have learned how to put central lines and intubate, and I'm good at handling those kind of situations, they're gonna like you. They're gonna be like, hey, this person is not like just complete raw material, there is something there, and they're gonna want to pick you. So that is one advantage that the Indian graduates really do have. So I really would recommend and insist that if you are done with your MBBS, and if you have your license with you, and if you're planning to apply for next cycle or anything, please do not sit at home and do nothing. Try to use that time to your advantage. Work, gain experience, add it to your CV, get letters from them that can go to the recommendation letter part of your application. But please, please, please use the opportunity that the Indian medical system has provided you, which is your license, which is the most powerful thing that you have in your hand. Okay. Now, I know this is a little bit all over the place in terms of your CV and your portfolio, and I didn't really talk about, oh, how can I make it strong or whatever. I will do a separate smaller video just focusing on CV for people who just want to know about that, where I will again touch base a little bit on the portfolio part of it. But this is basically the main video that has the whole shortlisting process. So that's why I didn't talk way too much in depth about CV, even though I feel like I did cover a good 60 to 70% of like the CV portfolio part. But yeah, just to understand and to summarize, the phase 1 of the MBRU residency application is called shortlisting. Shortlisting consists of 3 things that you will be evaluated on, which holds almost equal weightage. You have your GPA, which will be calculated based on your ECE. You have the EMREE exam score, which again will be standardized based on the percentage, percentile, and the number of attempts you have given. And you have the portfolio, which is basically just a collection of documents that you will be including in your CV. Now, GPA or ECE holds 35% of your shortlisting score. EMREE as well holds 35% of your shortlisting score. Together, these 2 exams hold 70% of your shortlisting score. The rest of the 30 falls on your CV or your portfolio. So if you are weak in any one of these, please do not be disheartened. Know that you can compensate in the other, and then, nothing is going to go to waste. I just want to put this little message out there because I know a lot of people, if medical students are watching this, medical students who are like more in their younger years, like your first year, second year, even third year are watching this, there is this very popular or very, I want to say popular, like very common trend in our medical education system where they're like, oh, you just have to pass. It doesn't matter if you are first ranker or if you got distinction or if you got a great score, because it's not going to make any difference. All you have to do is pass and then get through the years, and then because your future is decided by NEET PG anyway, right? Because it doesn't matter how good or bad you did in your 5 to 6 years of MBBS. It just matters how good or bad you do on that one day for the NEET PG, which is why unfortunately we see this trend where nobody really wants to give it their all in medical college, and they just like skim through. Of course, there are a lot of people who really enjoy studying and are nerds, and then they would do well regardless of what it stands for and everything. And they really wonder why am I doing this sometimes. So I will tell you that when I was applying for residency, GPA was not a factor. Okay, so there was no part where I could actually put in a GPA and it will be calculated into the score. Regardless, I was a nerd, so I had done pretty well in terms of scores throughout my 5 years, and I did graduate second in my class of 100. So that was a big deal for me. I did it because it gave me personal satisfaction, not because I thought it will help, because I knew GPA or my score was not going to count. I did, however, just mention it in my CV that, that I graduated second in a batch of 100, just because I felt like, hey, this is all my hard work. I feel like you should know that I'm a very consistent straight A student and you should be aware of that. So I put it in my CV. I really don't know if they saw it, and even if they saw it, did they really have to believe it unless they cross-check my transcript? There was no way. But anyways, I put it. But even then, when I thought about it, I was like, maybe it wouldn't have made any difference to my application or my selection. But right now it is counted, and as very clearly mentioned, it accumulates to 35% of your score. So for those of you who are already on the bandwagon of working very hard for each year's exam and trying to score maximum, stay strong. It is worth it. There is a purpose. It's going to be counted into your scores when you apply for exams like these. Your GPA is going to be so important. So your consistency and your hard work is going to pay off. Okay, For those of you who are not on that bandwagon, who are on the other bandwagon, they're like, yeah, passing is enough, please understand that it is not. And this is something that you can only rectify now. So if you are still in the earlier years and you're considering applying for a competitive entrancy position, residency position like the EMREE and the MBRU residency, please start working hard towards improving your GPA, because your GPA is something that you cannot change once you are out of MBBS. You have to work on it consistently throughout the years to maintain a very high score so that it can be translated to a very high ECE score. So please do that. But I don't want to sound demotivating to those who have not done that and have thought like, why am I wasting my energy? I'm just gonna pass and then do this, and then they find out like EMREE exists and MBRU residency exists, and they're like, oh no, now I can't do anything about my GPA. Again, please don't be disheartened. Study hard for the EMREE, make your portfolio strong, and you can still beat that. Then 65% of your score is still pending, so don't worry about it too much either. But like I said, if you're in a position where you can rectify that, please do rectify it, so that all your 3 phases of shortlisting are strong, and then you have the most chance to get accepted in terms of scoring and stuff. Now to the surprise fun part of the video. So I know that a lot of people want to know the source of or the resource as to where to study EMREE from. I have done a lot of digging with the most recent interns batch and the people who are currently going to give EMREE as to what are they using, what do they prefer, what do they suggest, and they have given me a few ideas. I've compiled that into a list sort of. And if you are interested in preparing for EMREE and you really want to know what those resources are, I'm not going to give it to you very easily. I'm going to make you work a little hard. So what you need to do is you need to go to my Instagram page. You have to make sure that you're following me, and then after you follow, you have to find this particular reel that I am going to put in this side. So you have to find this reel, and underneath that reel in the comment, you have to comment EMREE. So that's EMREE, all in caps. So comment EMREE under this reel, and then I will send you the link with the information that I have collected as to the resources that you can use to prepare for your EMREE. So that's about it. As promised, this one I knew was going to be a long one, and it's hitting almost close to 50 minutes, as I can see. As always, I will try to put up the other videos as well really quickly. I am also running out of time, and I want all this information to be out there as soon as possible. I want to help you guys as soon as possible. If I disappear in between, please understand that I am trying my best and my energy levels are so all over the place, but hopefully I will hit all my targeted videos before I actually have to sign off for a good 3 months. So that's it from my end for today. Please feel free to leave comments on questions. If it's answerable, I will answer. DM me on Instagram. I am much more active on Instagram than I am on YouTube, so please find me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, DM me with things. If you're looking for a consultation, I do offer those as well. Again, DM me for the details regarding that, and just DM me and we'll get in touch. And as always, take care, all the best, keep working hard. See you guys.